Broadcasting on Star Worldwide Networks. It's Two Small Biz Guys. And now, here are your hosts, Zen Benefiel and Ray Silverstein.
Well, howdy, Ray.
I can't look at you and the camera both.
We're back again.
We're back again.
Well, remember,
right.
we've got faces for radio. We're not on camera.
You're right. I have a face for camera, but not the chins.
It's right. What chin?
By the chin,
It's gone.
by the hair, my chinny chin.
Well, we've got an interesting guest this week, don't we?
Darn right. A very unusual guest with some different ideas, different concepts, different formats, and I think our listeners will find.
Yeah, and you said earlier he's more one of my kind of guys.
Yes,
right?
well, anybody who is into celestial music, a heavenly artist, is your kind of guy.
And went to the Maharishi University too.
So. Huh?
Yeah, that's
I haven't heard of that, the Maharishi University.
Maharishi.
Where's that located? So let's introduce our guest.
Yeah, this is Taansen Fairmont. He's the founder of Brilliance in Commerce and is a consultant on debt elimination, common law trusts, asset protection, and freedom from income tax.
Darn right. Sounds like exciting stuff.
Now, getting to my side of the things again, he's a meditation teacher as well. And as you said before, a celestial musician. We'll find out more about that maybe. He's an artist, heavenly artist, as opposed to an earthly artist, and writer on Vedic science, higher states of consciousness, and the dawn of the age of enlightenment. What a great subject for a business show. Now, we're going to talk about debt elimination and common law trusts today. Taansen, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
You can say more than thank you. You should be really excited to be here.
Couldn't you tell that in his thank you?
It's a fantastic joy.
Yeah,
Thank
there
you
we
so
go.
much. Yes, I've really enjoyed getting to know you guys.
Okay. So Zen had mentioned all these skill sets and all these things that you do. Why don't you tell us a little bit about trusts? Because from what I've read, your trusts seem different than what I'm familiar with. So what exactly...
What's a natural law trust, first of all, and the asset protection that it provides?
Well, there are.
Or did you have
many
a way you
benefits.
wanted to introduce that more, or better?
Yeah, it's one of the best asset protection instruments. What we say for peaceful people, people who like to just live their lives quietly and be of benefit to mankind, and not go out and violate ethics or natural law, universal law, or human law, but just maintain their own assets and peace and safety, exempt from excessive, theft or withholding or
so they're watching their assets,
invasion or interference by outside forces, and to continue with their private lives as a personal family holding trust, or as a business entity or a humanitarian project, a charity, or just to protect one's income, one's personal income, whether it be from a job, whether it be from a business, or whether it be from investments or retirement, and move it over from the taxation venues to the non-tax exempt venues, and protect it for future generations to build up assets.
So how do they actually work? What makes them different than an ordinary trust that's out there?
One of the things is being non-statutory, meaning it's not subject to the changing whims of legislatures and parliaments in countries around the world. This works in any country, anywhere in the world. It's not subject to the changing statutes that get implemented every year and changed, and you have to have professionals, legal professionals, to keep track of them, pay them high fees, register lots of documents, public records, use attorneys, agencies. There's lots of red tape, lots of bureaucracy, lots of fees, lots of things to keep up with, lots of people to pay, and expertise and complications.
Those complications sounds very daunting.
Complications.
That's the general world. The very word trust is intimidating for most people because of that.
Well, trust is a general word. Today, trust is a big issue, right?
It's a big issue intrinsically as a feeling amongst human beings, as well as a legal entity. It seems complex, and people rely on these high-paid experts. The secret is, the little known information is that the elite have used instruments down through the generations which are written outside the venue of these changing statutes.
So by elite, do you mean one percenters or above?
Right. The people who have had some of the greatest wealth in the world, not all of them, but many of them, like the Kennedys, the Rockefellers, the Mellons, the Hunt brothers, many of these great families, for better or worse, have used these instruments, and we feel that since the middle class has been learning how to access this type of instrument in the last couple of two or three decades, we feel why not use them ourselves, and we have been since the 80s with absolutely 100% success rate. So that means no penetration, no loss of assets due to the design.
So that means that if a person has a business, let me make sure. In these trusts, is there a trustee?
There's a trustee, yes.
Can that trustee be an owner of a business that happens to pledge the trust as collateral for a loan or a guarantee?
You could do that if you wish, if it has assets in it that can be pledged. And there is a choice as to who is the trustee. So if you are the client of the trust formation, you can either be the trustee if you have gone up a little bit of a learning curve and know how to do that. And you can also appoint a friend. We have simple protocols. So it's very flexible. It's up to you how you want to do it. You don't have to trust us, the people who put it together for you, at all. Well, all we do is set up a very nice structure that has been protecting people for decades.
What I was trying to find out is, how does this natural law trust protect you in case of a default on a loan where it's given as a collateral or as part of a person's personal wealth?
Well, very simple. Let's say somebody says you owe money, and you have nothing. So if they come after you, you can honestly say, I don't have it. If it is in the trust is a separate legal entity. It's an irrevocable trust, meaning you cannot revoke the transfer of those assets to the trust. They can't even force you to get it back from the trust.
So if you can
That's
pledge
called
the
bulletproof
trust,
asset protection.
But when you create this trust, you give up control of the assets?
You deliberately, as an individual, give up control of the assets in your personal name. Just as the wealthy and the elite have done, you separate equitable control from legal control, ownership. And so the trust instrument owns now, from that point on, the asset. And we allow you, as the people who set it up for you, choices as to what kind of administration, management of the trust you wish. Whether you wish to remain as the settlor, the beneficiary, and the manager, giving you practical control, or the trustee gives you legal and practical control. But the practical control simply means you can have the checkbook, the debit card, the login passwords, access. It's like having the steering wheel of a car. You have practical control over the vehicle.
Is that different from a trust that's already been out there? If a person has created one of those trusts? And what are those differences by being this natural law versus a trust that's already...
Or a living trust.
A statutory trust?
Well, typically, those trusts can be revoked by government agencies. They can be invalidated very easily by courts, whereas our natural law trusts cannot be invalidated because they are not subject to the jurisdiction of any governing body anywhere on the planet. They are created under the universal right to enter into private contract with each other, which is upheld by the U.S. Supreme Court case Hill versus Hinkle, 1905, never been overturned, one of the most quoted court cases in history. And that principle is universal throughout countries everywhere in the world, that we can go into contract with each other as long as we're not harming anyone. We have the right to do so without interference from any governing body. So that's one of the differences.
If there's a dispute between the beneficiaries what happens within the who adjudicates the resolution of that dispute?
The venue of the dispute is up to those parties. So if they choose a certain court, they can invoke the powers of that court for that specific purpose, not for the validity or the integrity of the
Whether
trust
it's a court
itself.
or an arbitrator or a mediator, whoever they
Or an
choose to
arbitrator, a
use.
mediator. In other words, for the specific issue to which they are applying this jurisdiction, they can litigate that particular issue. Not the validity of the trust structure, but simply whatever is the subject of their dispute.
So these trusts have some type of covenant within the trust as to if there's a dispute as to how it's going to be, resolved. Is that a common part of these trusts?
Absolutely, yes. Uh-huh.
Oh, so there's a lot of trust in trust.
There is a lot of trust. Do we trust trusts?
Yes.
No, this is trust squared.
Yeah. Well, wait till we get to trust cubed.
Oh, we get that. No, that's trust to the third power. But
Right. Exponentiating. Taansen, how did you discover this kind of trust? I mean, it sounds really interesting, and I totally, I've heard about these things for quite some time, and that, yes, it is an instrument. It's a way of the more wealthy that they've kind of held as a closely guarded secret as to how they work with things, and maybe it's been a closely guarded secret, or maybe not. Maybe we just haven't known the right questions to ask to find out more information, or even sought those kinds of things. But how did you find out about it to begin with? What kind of events were going on in your life?
Well, the background was my father worked in the government. He was in the U.S. Civil Service. We lived all over the United States and Europe as I was growing up, and I got sort of familiar with how government operated and the military and so forth. And then I studied with enlightened masters from the East and became aware that government is not the highest thing going on this planet. And most people are starting to realize that.
Yeah, we've always put our faith and trust in the leadership of our governments, and we've recognized that that's not necessarily the best thing to do.
Right. In ancient golden ages, it kind of perhaps was. There were times when we had enlightened government, but we certainly have not had that in the last few thousand years of the Dark Age.
For our listeners, everybody hears about enlightened government. What's that mean? Ray's looking at me like, yeah, what's that mean?
it means that
For
Thomas
one thing,
Thomas
they're not
Edison was there.
takers, they're givers. It's genuine sovereignty. They have awakened spiritual powers, and they're benevolent, they're philanthropic, they're helpful and nurturing, they're not harmful. They govern in a way that if someone does something wrong, they have creative ways to assist that person in being, quarantined from society.
So there's
they're reformed.
habilitation rather than rehabilitation.
Yes,
Oh.
it's actual nurturing, evolutionary counsel and guidance of society through supernormal powers and love.
Is that like
basically the
Tesla
principle of
machines?
love.
What
Pardon?
machines?
Is that like Tesla machines?
Oh, a Tesla machine. That's pretty.
Has,
That's
Tesla
what-
Motors? No.
No.
That's very enlightening
Okay.
with their new batteries.
So it's. So you're
Powers
saying
much.
that are there different types of these natural trusts? I mean, there are different names that you have, or they just have a kind of a general term definition?
We are the only ones in the world, to our knowledge, who has given the phrase natural law trust to these trusts, because common law in the past has been about the closest thing that mankind has come up with to align with universal or natural law. But even common law has some flaws. We also noticed that it was important to harmonize with the Uniform Commercial Code, in certain cases harmonize with certain statutes and other bodies of law, kingdom law, canon law, and so forth. And so we came up with the phrase natural law because if you are ethical, if you are supporting of life, if you are not destructive, if you're not harmful, and if you're not violating the rights of others, generally, if you are smart and if the trust is well designed, you will never have a problem. You will not lose assets, and you will not get in trouble.
Speaking of
And
not
that has
losing
been our
assets or
experience.
getting in trouble, we're going to break real quick here, and we'll be right back with you guys. And thanks for listening to Two Small Biz Guys. We'll be right back.
Two Small Biz Guys with Zen and Ray. We'll be back after this.
The digital world is vast. Is it working for you? Would you like some qualified help? Zen Benefiel is a wonder with social media who leads focused and organized workshops on multiple platforms like Facebook, Google+, and LinkedIn. He leads by example, not theory, and teaches you how to live large and lively on the web. From blogs to SEO, his web presence speaks for itself. Take advantage of his expertise. Visit BeTheDream.com and click on Web Wizardry. Hire him while you can.
As a business owner, have you ever felt alone at the top? You don't have to be. Ray Silverstein has worked with many business owners for over 20 years facilitating peer advisory boards. He is the proverbial mentor and tormentor. A Pro President's Peer Advisory Board is a confidential monthly meeting of non-competitive owners that give support, feedback, and knowledge. They know the adage, all of us are smarter than one of us. He has walked in your shoes, having owned and sold 2 companies with sales in excess of $60 million and approximately 1,300 employees. In Young President's organization, he participated in peer advisory boards and felt it was a key to his success. His passion is to help small business owners succeed. He knows peer boards work when you are open, don't feel like you know it all, are willing to put issues on the table, and willing to take criticism. Be his guest at a Pro Advisory Board meeting to see if it works for you. There's no commitment to join, and you'll have a great experience. To sample a free Pro Business Owner Peer Board, email ray@proprez.com. That's ray@proprez.com. There's no commitment or charge. You're listening to Two Small Biz Guys. Now, back to your hosts, Zen Benefiel and Ray Silverstein.
I trust we're back.
You trust well.
I trust well.
You trust well.
We
are back, and
that's a well trust.
That's a pretty deep subject.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I want to ask some questions, but before we do that, I do want to mention. We want to thank our listeners. Yeah, I'm mentioning silence, the golden silence. Dead air on the radio is not a good thing. TwoSmallBizGuys.com. We are glad to be with you, and we enjoy the listeners' comments on our website. And please feel free to visit TwoSmallBizGuys.com and share it with your friends.
Darn right. Numeral 2.
Yeah. SmallBizGuys.com. So, back to the show. Taansen, you mentioned a term that I'm somewhat familiar with when you were talking about working with these trusts and things with various government entities, and you used the word harmonize with them. And I think probably a lot of business people aren't necessarily they hear harmonize, and you think you're going to teach them meditation or something like that. But the reality is you're dealing with these entities in a little different way, or maybe a similar way, is to find some kind of equilibrium with them. And how do you describe that to people that are not necessarily familiar with Eastern thinking or meditation or harmonization or any of that kind of
harmony,
stuff?
is that what you're asking? If
What?
they're not in harmony?
Yeah, if they're not in harmony, how do you get them?
Okay, but Taansen, how do you go about establishing one of these? If somebody came to you, what is the process that you go through or lead them through to kind of create, but to create this?
You want me to answer the first question or the second or both?
Well,
Yes,
Ray has a tendency of asking questions right after, so if you can handle both of them, great. Yeah, it's a multiple choice, and one or the other. Both would be great.
If you're sovereign, and that is something that the Americans were given when our country was founded, and it's kind of a principle in all countries in the world that can be appreciated by any human being anywhere, that in the 1700s we were redefined. Sovereignty itself was redefined as sovereigns without subjects, and no less than 6 U.S. Supreme Court cases have affirmed that American citizens are sovereigns without subjects. So if you're sovereign, do you comply with or subject yourself to the jurisdiction or the laws of any particular body in the world, or do you harmonize with? Do you comply? Do you voluntarily comply with, or you might say align with? That's why I use that word.
Okay. So if it creates a better environment for everybody, then you're looking at acquiescing maybe to the rules and regulations of the time so that everybody gets along. Geez, can't we all just get along?
Right.
That's a high trust factor.
It becomes a definition as what is getting along.
Yeah, this is true. Anyway, go ahead.
It's like you're driving down the freeway. What keeps you in the lane? You know, you are volunteering to steer your car well, because if you don't, you know you're going to kill somebody, maybe yourself.
Unless you live in a smarter city.
There's nobody pointing a gun at your head saying, you better stay in that lane, you know. So like that, we volunteer to harmonize with the major bodies of law in the world so as to get along and be at peace with mankind. It doesn't mean that we are subject to the jurisdiction of any particular governing body, especially the structure of the trust, the validity of the trust itself. Only the actions of its trustees can be litigated in that way, but not the structure of the trust itself.
So it actually supports a little more ethical behavior of doing the right things right.
It supports it. It has been our experience, and it's been the proof, yes.
Okay.
Would you like for me to give out a link for people to get more information?
Sure. Absolutely.
That's smallbizliberty.com, just like your business, small biz, B-I-Z, liberty.com. So at that site, all the setup procedures, all the people's questions can be answered. You have Q&A, frequently asked questions. You have examples. There are audios. There's a video. The full information is there.
Awesome. We'll also have that in our blog post and our emails that go out to our mailing list as well, so people can have access to it. Thank you very much, Taansen. So now on to the second question.
Right. So if I'm a harmonious individual and I want to come in and create one of these trusts, how would I go about it? And what would you mentioned the trust, which now the word, I'm having a senior moment, the word escapes me, where you can't cancel the trust. Irrevocable trust, thank you.
Okay.
So if I want to create one of these trusts, what is the process that you would take me through?
Well, you'd go to smallbizliberty.com and read through it, make sure you're comfortable with it. And basically, there's the ordering mechanism there. And when you order, then you're given an overview of the roles of the beneficiary, the trustee, and the settler. And you decide what roles you want to play and who you would like to appoint for the various roles in the trust. And you fill out that form and submit it to us. And then we deliver the trust, usually within one business day, and then assist you for the rest of your life for consultation. But it's really a lot simpler than most people would imagine, as well as being bulletproof in the sense that once that is set up, assets are prepared to move into it. You can put foreign currencies, you can put your house, you can put your business, your bank account, your family holdings, whatever. And as well, we pay referral fees. If people out there are entrepreneurial and want to refer a business to us, you can sign up as an affiliate and refer people. So we have all kinds of opportunities in that way. Those who have salaries from a job, if you want to transfer the salary into the trust and make it tax exempt, you would do that by proposing to the employer that you convert the work from being an employee to being an independent contractor. Do the same work for the same pay, nothing changes except the paperwork and the payee name on the paycheck.
Could
if
you?
It's a big corporation, they're probably not going to be willing to do that.
I was going to say, can you? No, there's a lot of activity recently going on regarding independent contractors, where the National Labor Relations Board has changed the definition, and so it's far more difficult for people to be independent contractors, at least considered by the government. So how does a person become an independent contractor and transfer their compensation from being an employee to an independent contractor?
Well, again, if one learns about the different bodies of law and learns how the vested interests use certain types of laws to steer the population into certain compliances, then you can understand those restrictions and qualifications and complications you were just mentioning. But traditionally,
Or you could just become a freelancer.
you can be a freelancer,
Well,
and you
even-
can say, okay, I work 9 to 5, I have a 40-hour-a-week job, I get this much pay, I do this much work. Just tell the employer, I'll do the exact same work for the exact same pay and the exact same benefits. Everything's the same. It's just that instead of paying me, you're going to pay the trust. Okay? Then the trust takes care of your bills. So whatever you
okay.
were doing before in your personal name, now you're doing in the name of the trust.
Okay, so basically what you're suggesting is that the employer contract with the trust to provide certain services.
Right.
And as those services are provided, therefore the trust now bills the customer, and that party pays the trust for the compensation for it.
That's it.
That's what you're. If I take it into simplistic words.
That's it. And no one, no agency, no government anywhere can interfere with the right to do that. That is an intrinsic right that all human beings have.
You may just have a little grief from your employer in having to change all the paperwork. Because
Yeah,
people
but-
inherently, folks don't want to change the way they've been doing things. And if you introduce something that's different to them, the first thing they're going to do is question it. They're not going to have a whole lot of trust, right?
That's right. Well, does what if somebody was to do that? I'm just asking from curiosity. If someone was to do that, and do they have to basically tell the employer, or not the customer, because they're no longer the employer, the customer, that if some governmental body brings action, that they'll defend that body, or what do they do in that case?
In the old days, we used to say, "Hey, you're going to take this job and shove it."
No.
No.
Well, first of all,
But you still want to be there, though,
Most-
right?
most-
You don't
most-
want to leave. You want
most companies
you want to
prefer-
harmonize with the business.
yeah, but most companies prefer to have independent contractors rather than employees, because they think they don't pay withheld tax, they don't pay Social Security, so it's advantageous on that part.
Correct.
So the government is bringing action to try to reduce that. But if an employer is found guilty of these things, or negligent, whatever, maybe action is brought against the employer, not the independent trust. So have you been involved with this type of circumstance, or am I just
We've
making?
never heard of it being a problem for the simple reason that you're not an employee anymore. So how can there be any action? If they're saying, oh, you're not withholding or you're not filing these forms with your employees, you can say, well, I'm sorry, they're not employees. We're outsourcing to an external business to pay fees for certain services.
But I think what Ray's getting to is with the changes recently in the labor laws, that still is something that might be a challenge.
Well, it might be. I don't know. I mean,
It may or may not be. But
what Taansen is saying is that technically you're not even an independent contractor. What you become is you basically are working for the trust, and the trust
Right.
is receiving all compensation. The trust is paying all bills.
right.
Is that correct?
Right. Let's
I
say
trust
you
that
hire
to be
somebody
true.
to paint your house or clean your carpets. You're just paying fees to someone, so the former employer can look at it the same way.
So let's say I'm an untrusting business owner, and I don't necessarily want to engage you at this time because I really don't know who you are, what you do, or reputation, all that kind of stuff. So if I had a legal counsel or accounting counsel, and I wanted to go talk to them about this subject, what would I say to them?
It's exactly the same as if you were hiring an employee. You look at the individual's qualifications. Can they do the job? Can they do what you want them to do? And the money is the same. The services are the same. The work is the same. Everything's the same. The only difference is that instead of calling them an employee with all those legal complications, it's actually a lot freer for the business to have less obligation, because now you're just outsourcing to an independent individual. That individual is asking you that, look, I will perform these services. Will you please pay my trust? under this agreement. Simple agreement. You can make it real simple, one page.
Okay. Well, and with that, we're going to close that conversation down. We'll pick it back up in just a few moments. We're going to take another break here, and thanks for listening to Two Small Biz Guys with our guest Taansen Fairmont from Brilliance in Commerce. We'll be right back.
Two Small Biz Guys with Zen and Ray. We'll be back after this.
Hi, I'm Zen Benefiel with Be the Dream Transformational Life Coaching and Professional Services at BeTheDream.com. Our mission? To provide leading-edge transformational personal and business development services. Our services include life coaching, enterprise coaching, partnering facilitations, and possibilities coagulating. We've been in business since 1988. In times of massive change, you need someone who can help you adjust and transform. I can meet that challenge with you, offering a stellar skill set from serving individuals and companies for over 20 years. I invite you to peruse BeTheDream.com and put me to the test. Fill out the coaching assessment survey and give me a call. The first call is free, and you can find out if I'm what you are looking for in a coach, consultant, or service provider. Call 480-633-7179. Let your dreams mold future realities. BeTheDream.com.
Business owners want to call their own shots, make appropriate income, and control their destiny. Our passion is to help you achieve your goals. A Pro Peer Advisory Board is just the thing. It's a confidential monthly meeting of non-competitive owners facilitated by a pro who has walked in your shoes. He's your mentor and tormentor, moving you ahead. When you have issues or opportunities keeping you awake, where do you get help? Pro Boards give support and non-biased feedback from your peers. To sample a free Pro President's Board meeting, email ray@propres.com. There's no commitment or charge. Email ray@propres.com. You're listening to Two Small Biz Guys. Now, back to your hosts, Zen Benefiel and Ray Silverstein.
You know, I really like that music.
Yeah, so do I. Even though it's your music, I like it.
Yeah, I know. Well, no, it wasn't my music. I'm just the drummer on it.
Okay,
But
I do have
it was fun.
I do have one question before we start, before you give the plug. When you mentioned the term settler, what is a settler?
A settler is someone who puts assets into a trust. That is usually the individual for whom the trust is set up. Let's say you have $1 million, and let's say you want to protect it. And let's say you have an enemy who files a lawsuit and wins a judgment against you.
They're not very harmonious, are they?
They can come and take it. They can force you to give it up. If you have given it to a revocable trust, you could say, well, I don't have it anymore. The trust has it. They can say, yeah, but it's a revocable trust. Therefore, we hereby order you to revoke that transfer as a settler into that trust. And they can do so. They can force you to do that. But if it's an irrevocable trust, you can say, I'm sorry, even if I order the trust to give it back to me, it doesn't have to.
Can you create an irrevocable trust whereby you can change the beneficiaries of the trust?
Absolutely. So these trusts are infinitely flexible. You can change the beneficiaries. You can appoint any beneficiary you want. You can make any trustees you want. You can have protectors. Depending on the complexity and the size of your operations and the number of your assets, there are nearly infinite number of different ways you can go with the construction of these. They're really state-of-the-art.
I am a protector.
Yeah, so basically what you're saying is once you deliver the assets to the trust, that's where the irrevocable part is. You can't get them back.
And that's the way you want it.
Yes, but you can through the trustee or the ability to control the trustee or name the trustee. Control is a bad term. You basically can have the trust harmonize, get the trust to sing along with you.
You got to be in harmony. Yeah, you got to sing.
There you go.
Right.
And that's
sing together.
Because most of us as human beings trust each other more than we trust the government or trust, these international crime syndicates and big corporations and so forth. So once you've set it up that way, it's under private contract. then the administration of your affairs can go very smoothly, and it's out of the reach of thieves and would-be attackers.
And if you want to find out more information about that, you can go to smallbizliberty.com. That's smallbizliberty.com.
Now, when you also create these, even ex-spouses can't get to these trusts.
Nobody. Doesn't matter who it is.
Nobody.
Ooh, the long arm of the ex-spouse. Ooh.
Which means that it is behooving the individual who sets it up to act ethically, because it is a powerful instrument. And there have been instances in the past where many people have used these to avoid legitimate creditors that they should have paid.
If you got family and things like that you
just
need to take care of, then you need to take care of them. And trying to hide stuff from them is not really an ethical practice or a moral practice for that matter.
You had mentioned some debt elimination. Can you take out a credit card in the name of a trust?
This is the other thing that we were going to share with your listeners today. Besides
How you like that
asset
segue?
protection is we have been so fortunate and so lucky to have discovered years ago and developed since 2002 the ability to not reduce, not negotiate, not compromise, but to outright eliminate, cancel credit card debts, unsecured lines of credit, student loans, any kind of loan in the United States or from a United States bank or institution that is not secured by real estate like a mortgage, not secured by a car, but an unsecured line of credit that you sign for, such as on a Visa or a MasterCard. What we do is give you paperwork that you send to what we call pretender lender, challenging them basically to prove that they actually had money loaned out of their accounts, that they really did provide funds from their own accounts, and that they are in compliance with a number of lending laws, and that if they cannot produce this evidence, the debt is hereby eliminated. And we have had a 100, not 99, not 98, a 100% success rate. So not a single failure since 2002.
Okay, so you're acting for the benefit of the trustee, and when you do this, taking this action, the trustee brings you in to resolve this issue?
I'm thinking he's saying that you don't even have to have a trust to be able to do this.
Right. These debt elimination procedures work for anyone, whether you have one of our trusts or not. But yes, if you did have a trust and you had a role such as trustee or settler or beneficiary, it would apply to your individual debts. Yes.
So if a person has, or a company has, credit card debt, and you help them, I assume they come to you and you assist them with the documentation and the communication as to dealing with the creditor.
Exactly.
And so you have the format that you send out this information, and I assume that you charge them some type of fee for whatever resolution you're able to attain for them. Is that assumption correct, or how does this handle?
I think that's a trustworthy assumption.
A trustworthy.
It is.
Well, it's a one-time lifetime fee of $450, and it's not a service, it's a product, meaning that we protect ourselves by not going out and acting like a law firm or an accountant and providing services. We're just exercising our right of free speech to provide information, but we do provide free backup customer support. So we're there for our customers all the time for answers to questions and holding people's hands through the process. It is a do-it-yourself system, but we do provide customer service to answer questions and guide people through the process.
Yeah,
but
so
it's basically
what I hear you
administrative. It's not going to court. It's just letters that are sent, certified mail. You were going to ask?
Well, I was just going to reiterate, if possible, so that I'm kind of playing my active listener role, right? So what I hear you saying is that in this case, when you've got, people are most of the time negligent, or they want to avoid paperwork, right? Whether it's filling out forms or doing your taxes or whatever it is, it's something that you just want to avoid at all costs. So what I hear you say that you do for folks is you give them the templates from which to draw from to create their own instruments, if you will, or communications. They're remedies, right? The remedies.
Exactly.
Cough, cough.
We provide the templates and the answers to questions and the guidance. So they do it themselves, but we provide the guidance and the documents. And we've had, for everyone who has done this, according to our instructions and followed our system, no failures. And it's good for the economy. I wanted to point that out. It's very important that people realize that if you are paying on a Visa or MasterCard or a student loan or some other unsecured loan to a United States institution that so supposedly loaned that money, you are actually giving money to an international crime syndicate. We have proven this repeatedly, and over
it's all a conspiracy. Is that what you're saying?
We have actually challenged them to prove otherwise, and not a single time have they ever presented a single shred of evidence that they are not in violation of this fact.
So it's kind of a house of cards.
So if that lender brings them into court, which they could do, how do they defend themselves in the court in this type of circumstance? You also
provide legal support. Now that is extremely rare. We've had less than 1%, maybe as little as 1/2% of our customers have had that happen, and then we provide legal support, and we also have no failures there.
So in other words, if somebody were to take advantage of this service, is that if it is push comes to shove where they have to go into court, you provide counsel to do that or support?
Yes, we provide some of the very most powerful counsel in the country who are trained in our systems, and they follow it faithfully. They don't deviate, and that's why we win. And we have a 100% win rate. You see, basically, when I highly recommend everybody read the book The Creature from Jekyll Island by G. Edward Griffin. It's the story of the Federal Reserve System. And until you've read that book, or a more if you're really academic and into the PhD level, read Secrets of the Federal Reserve by Eustace Mullen. But that's more of a boring, collegiate level. Whereas Creature from the Jekyll Island is the exact same story, but told in a page-turning style, like a murder mystery.
Speaking of creatures, how do you counsel your parties who deal with this to deal with the debt collectors?
Oh, they're a piece of cake. That's a pushover. The so-called debt collectors are actually junk debt buyers for pennies on the dollar. Mm-hmm. They're even easier pushovers than the pretender lenders. They have zero defense. See, the pretender lender themselves have zero defense to our allegations.
So what happens in the psychological trauma that the party has when these people come after them? Is there any counseling as to how you handle them, hold their hand, or
don't succumb to the threat?
We're there for them.
Don't succumb to the fear or the threat.
Right. I use this
Be in
myself.
harmony.
I cancel over $50,000 of credit card debt involving 7 cards, Visas, MasterCards, and Discover back in 2002. I never had to go to court. I've not had a problem with them since, and it's continued to work for my friends and family and our customers to this day. So it has a proven track record. And admittedly, a lot of people have said this is the answer to their prayers because their families are drowning in debt. They come to realize it's phony, it's bogus, it's false debt. It was never there in the first place. These lenders can't prove that any money came out of their accounts. It was just like computer entries on a keyboard. So we challenge them to prove that they actually are being financially harmed if we don't pay it back. And they cannot. Now, people say, yeah, but I ethically believe in paying my legitimate debts. Oh, I do too. And if you went to a merchant, let's say you had a store on the corner that issued its own in-house credit, and they sold you some merchandise. That is a legitimate debt, and it cannot and should not be canceled. But if that store outsourced it to MasterCard or Visa, to some national institution under the Fed system, then it can be canceled because no money came out of anybody's accounts anywhere. It was just created out of thin air, and that's why I recommend people read The Creature from Jekyll Island. It's called the Mandrake Mechanism.
Well, we're going to have a Mandrake mechanism here.
Has been working.
Speaking of Mandrake, you're going to do magic and take a break? Is that it?
I am going to do magic, but it's, well, we'll see that off the air. We're going to take a break. Thanks for listening to Two Small Biz Guys, and we hope you are getting a head full of information today that you can go check out and get your information from smallbizliberty.com, and you can even visit twosmallbizguys.com. Thanks for listening for now. We'll be right back with you.
Two Small Biz Guys with Zen and Ray. We'll be back after this. Business owners want to call their own shots, make appropriate income, and control their destiny. Our passion is to help you achieve your goals. A Pro Peer Advisory Board is just the thing. It's a confidential monthly meeting of non-competitive owners facilitated by a pro who has walked in your shoes. He's your mentor and tormentor, moving you ahead. When you have issues or opportunities keeping you awake, where do you get help? Pro boards give support and non-biased feedback from your peers. To sample a free Pro President's board meeting, email ray@propres.com. There's no commitment or charge. Email ray@propres.com.
Are you a small business owner looking for education and information and don't have time for school? Is there an area of your business you'd like to know more about but aren't sure where to go or who to ask? Practical Biz U is an online repository of small business courses now available to you on the web. There are single class options, bundles for specific areas, and monthly memberships for ongoing learning opportunities. Go to practicalbizu.com and sign up today.
You're listening to Two Small Biz Guys. Now, back to your hosts, Zen Benefiel and Ray Silverstein.
And with our guest, Taansen Fairmont.
With
Fairmont.
With very interesting stuff.
I grew up near a town called Fairmont.
Fairmont?
Fairmont.
Fairmont.
Yeah.
What does that mean? Wasn't
It's
great?
different spelling in his last name, and I had mispronounced his name.
Oh, okay. But you said you grew up there.
Yeah, I grew up just south of there, actually. It's where James Dean was from.
Oh, that's overwhelming.
It's rather underwhelming now.
That sounds like a real killer.
Yeah, he's about
of a
6 foot
place.
under. Yeah, a real killer. So, speaking of being a real killer, Taansen, are there any drawbacks? I mean, what you're offering to people is, for most of them, something that just sounds almost too good to be true and almost incredulous. So what kind of drawbacks or dangers are there to canceling your debts?
The main three drawbacks, number one, is, of course, overcoming the intimidation factor. Going up a little bit of a learning curve just to become familiar with the fact that you've been duped, and that you've been swindled by the international banking system. Come to terms with that, realize that that information is not, I'm not saying that because I'm some sort of angry person. I'm saying it because it's the truth. It's just the truth. Mm-hmm. So that's drawback number one is,
but I can't handle the truth.
Disbelief factor in your own mind. Number two is your credit rating used to be, years ago, sometimes would suffer. We had a 100% success rate in canceling the debts, but sometimes our credit score would go down because of the debt cancellation. Now, in more recent years, last couple of years, we've been very successful in moving that pretty close to 100% success.
Isn't that just one more piece of paperwork? Because you actually have to send a piece of paper to the credit reporting agencies?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
We recommend that some of our documents be included to the credit reporting agencies. And we've improved our language. We keep on evolving the system. It keeps getting better and better and better. And so
you have to
it's
stay in
gotten much
harmony.
Stronger. And drawback number three is that it is kind of a hassle in the sense that about once a month you have to respond to their junk letters, meaning you send in our letter and they avoid, they obfuscate, they beat around the bush. They'll write back saying, no, that's no good. You still owe the debt because here's your signature on the original document. So we provide an answer that says, if fraud has been committed, it nullifies ab initio. That means from the beginning, any contract ever signed. They have no defense to that. They've never written back saying, yes, but here's some other law, you still owe it because of this. They've never been able to answer that. So we've caught them red-handed, and we're right.
Okay, why is there no defense against the fraud in the respect that the person went out and got goods, used a credit card, and transferred for those goods? How come the credit card company doesn't have fraud? I mean, why doesn't the recipient have fraud instead of the credit card company?
Because the recipient acted in good faith and made payments and believed this was a real debt, but the bank loaned nothing, gave nothing, contributed nothing.
And charged exorbitant interest rates for that. Nothing.
Oh my God, they're making trillions in free gravy every year. Trillions on this.
Free gravy, as long as it's got the trimmings, I think that.
You see, it's a pretty big racket they've got going. It's kind of like you and I do a transaction together, but the mafia inserts itself in the middle with points a gun at us, and says, give me my cut of that transaction.
What's in your wallet?
That's basically what they're doing.
Yeah, there was a article or something I've just read where the credit card companies want to go back to the merchant and basically say if there was a fraudulent transaction that the merchant must make the credit card company good. So in that respect, would the merchant have a problem, or would the merchant have to defend themselves in this type of circumstance?
Never, ever, 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 ever have we once seen that happen. It can't happen in the nature of things because the merchant gave goods or services.
Right.
Okay. So you're saying is that there's a hassle. Now, actually, what you're really saying is that with your system, the post office makes a lot of money and helps. This is helpful for the post office because we're sending letters back and forth.
Yes, it's
still
also
using
helpful
snail
to the
mail.
economy because guess what? You're withdrawing support from a criminal organization and you're redirecting those funds, hopefully, to bettering your life, to education, to medical bills, to taking care of your house, your family, right? You're taking monies that you were spending $300, $400, $500, $1,000 a month on debt service. Now that money's freed up. You can begin immediately discontinuing the payments on any of the debts that you wish to cancel upon implementation of this program.
Now, debts that you wish to cancel, and is there any kinds of debt that this doesn't work with?
Mortgage.
It doesn't work with legitimate debts. For example, your mother. Okay, she loaned you some money. You owe her
she's
money
a debt.
back.
All right.
You know, that's.
I'm indebted to her for everything.
Your friend, a business, and so, or a bill, like a medical bill. Okay, the doctor's provided services, you have to pay for their services. That's a debt, which is not a money loan from an institution.
Mm-hmm.
The kinds of debts we cancel are the money loans from, the big
Any
banks,
of the card services, let's say.
credit card companies, student loans even.
But you're referring primarily to only unsecured debt, where
Unsecured,
there's no
right.
security involved, where they can go and put their hands on it.
Right. You didn't pledge your house or your car or any kind of asset for that debt. Right. Mm-hmm.
And also where the monies were not given to you directly. This is a case where the monies are given to a third party. Is that
Yes.
correct? Okay.
Yes. You could say that because it goes through a bank, it goes through some agency. Right. Uh-huh.
But you also mentioned that the FICO scores, that your experience has been that the FICO scores are not hampered by this, or?
That is increasingly the case. We're very close to 100% success rate now in preventing the FICO score from being affected by this process.
So does that mean that the FICO score is not hampered, that the party can go out and get a new credit card?
If they follow the instructions properly and stay in touch with our guidance, yes, that has been the case. And in the few cases where people had extraordinary problems and they already had challenges, we do outsource to credit repair that we can put people in touch with.
Now, this is not necessarily something that you would recommend that the average person, you really have to be upside down and having attempted to do the right things on your own first, or how do you see that? What do you find your clients or your clientele basically to be in that respect, or where
Not
are
necessarily.
they? Okay.
I mean, yeah, if you're in trouble, if you're having trouble paying debts, then we're a lifesaver. But there are a lot of people out there who are caught up on all their debt payments, and they're not really suffering that much. They have assets, but they begin getting educated. They start realizing, oh my God, I'm paying these criminal organizations. The money's just going down the drain, and it's actually harming the world economy by making those monthly payments on those cards or that student loan. And that education alone is enough to give them an ethical sense of obligation. I've had a number of customers like that.
Now, are there other sources other than the smallbizliberty.com, keywords or something like that people can use to do their own research to find out more about this on their own?
I would say they can Google debt elimination or debt cancellation. I would just say that if you get confused and you get into negotiation, consolidation, then you're going to have far higher fees and much more stress and far lower success, because you end up getting involved with attorneys who will help you to, first of all, they never challenge the legitimacy of the debt in the first place. They assume from the beginning that it's legitimate. Now it's just a matter of negotiating how much you can pay on it. And, oh man, the institutions will fight tooth and nail to get you to pay as much as possible.
But of course,
it's amazing
so
that you can
job.
actually have more difficulty and more stress paying a portion of the debt than paying none of it at all.
And you got people working from, hourly wages that are believing in all of that, and that they're doing the right thing for the company because they've got the security of the job.
That's right. Well, they're employed to do it, but it's not.
Are they 1099 or they're actually an employee?
I'm just curious. How did you get into
freelancers?
How did you get into this type of area with the debt? I'll call it debt elimination.
Well, it all started in the 90s when I got involved in the untaxed movement, and one thing led to another. I learned that President Reagan confirmed that we have an invalid tax system, and when I started realizing that the government was not what we think it is, that it was actually taken over by the bankers in 1913, then I read books like Creature from Jekyll Island by G. Edward Griffin, and that educated me about our monetary system. And I understood money for the first time, and then I understood how it's created out of thin air. We don't have a gold-backed system. We don't have a system that is asset-based.
It seems like it'd be a little thicker air.
And it was on purpose. It was designed on purpose like that to get the whole world in debt and to enslave the world via debt. And once I started realizing that there has been this concerted effort to enslave everybody by debts and taxes, then I rebelled against both. I said, all right, I'm going to live free. I'm going to live sovereign. I'm going to be free of all debts and free of all taxes. And once I learned it for myself, one thing led to another. I started helping my friends, and pretty soon it grew into a business.
Your notes, you haven't paid, taxes since 1990s.
Right.
Has the government ever brought action against you or called you in?
Nope, not for income tax. They've tried on various other things, because that is, again, once you're educated and you learn how to set yourself up, they have no defense to it.
So
there's basically two ways you protect yourself. One is criminally and the other is civilly. And once you learn how to protect yourself on both of those bases, you're fine.
So you're telling me you're a very civil person?
He's harmonious.
No,
He's harmonized.
He may be harmonious, but he's also very civil.
He's very civil, and he's pretty darn smart, too. And Taansen, we want to thank you for being on the show and expressing your vast education on the system that is apparently not a good one for us. And we want to thank you.
Well, thank you very, very much. I like you guys. I like what you're doing, and I like all the assistance you're giving to various causes, good causes out there.
Well, great. And again, if you're part of our listening audience and you want to find out more information about Taansen, it's smallbizliberty.com. And we are Zen and
Ray, and go to our website for more freebies and things like that.
Thanks for listening to Two Small Biz Guys. We'll catch you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Two Small Biz Guys with Zen Benefiel and Ray Silverstein. You can hear Two Small Biz Guys live every Wednesday at noon or catch their show on demand anytime 24/7 right here on StarWorldWideNetworks.com.